All right, here's our final video. There are a few things that you're gonna need in order to finish your hoop. You're gonna either need an iron or a hair dryer or a heat gun, something that's gonna produce enough heat to remove those pin marks. Fabric scissors, which fabric scissors are just sharp scissors that you've dedicated only cutting fabric with. If you have other scissors, that's fine too. They just might be a little more dull and a little bit harder to cut. And then a hot glue gun. All right, so the first thing you're gonna do is you're gonna leave your design in your hoop. Do not remove it. You're gonna grab either your iron, heat gun, hair dryer, and you're gonna just press it on your piece, being careful of those woven wheels. My iron has a steam function, which I like to use, and just lightly push that to remove all the pin marks. This up and kind of look around, make sure I've gotten everything. Okay, I am pretty happy with that. So I'm going to put my iron aside. And at this point, this is when you want to look closely at your piece and say, oh wow, that pin mark was covering up a stitch that I missed, or I need to make the dot in my eye a little bit bigger. And so at this point, you would stitch some of those extra stitches that you might need. My piece doesn't look like I need any right now, so it should be good to continue to the next part. All right, so at this point, you would want, if you feel like your piece is not already perfectly centered in your hoop, you're gonna wanna remove it from your hoop and recenter it and make sure it's perfect and exactly the way you want it to be. And sometimes it's a little hard to tell if something's centered with the excess fabric hanging out. So what you can kind of do is just kind of tuck it a little bit and hide it under there and help give yourself a little bit better of a visual. So I'm trying to think if I am content with my piece right now or not. I think I might remove it and try and bring it a little bit lower here on the bottom. So I'm gonna go ahead and remove it. And now you are going to have these lines on your piece. If those bother you, go ahead and iron them out and then you can readjust. But it's not 100% necessary. If anything, it helps you see where you already had the piece and where to move it to. Okay, I think I'm happy with that. So I'm going to make sure this is loose. Put it back on top. And sometimes it's hard to get this perfectly centered, so what you might want to do is hold it like think of this as where it's going to be centered, because as you tighten it's going to move to the left. Okay, I think I like that, so I'm going to tighten it a little and I'm going to pull all the way around, and I'm going to hold it against me because it's just too hard to do on video. And you might have to do this a few times. You might tighten all the way around, realize you pulled it in a way you didn't like, and that you need to do it again. Or that you didn't like exactly where the nut ended up being at, which is always my problem. I always have a hard time getting that just perfectly centered. Okay, so I'm happy with that. Make sure your nut is as tight as it possibly can be. And make sure you're also pulling, if you're having to pull again, pulling this white fabric as well. All right, so I'm happy with that. I'm going to turn it over and I'm going to cut away the bright white fabric all the way down to the hoop itself. And sometimes I do prefer to kind of hold it off a little bit. Another thing I like to hold against my chest, but I'm going to try and show you as best as possible. And you want to make sure you're kind of holding that the Kona fabric, the slightly off-white fabric, away so you're not going to accidentally cut it. It's like an apple peel. You want to try and see if you can get it off all in one piece. Please tell me I'm not the only person who does that. All right, so put that aside. And then you can trim off any excess that you didn't maybe get quite close enough to. And it really doesn't have to be too perfectly close. Like this right here is just fine. All right, so we have that bright white fabric cut all the way down. And another quick thing to say is you want to make sure, because we have woven wheels that are kind of like a 3D stitch, they're coming off the piece, you want to make sure you're not pushing this straight to the ground and like turning it, because you're going to end up making your woven wheels possibly a little wonky. So next we're going to cut the Kona fabric, the slightly off white fabric, but not all the way. We're going to cut it so that there's maybe 1/2 inch. Let's do a little sample. You want to cut it so that when it pushes down, it's only hitting the wood and it's not hitting the fabric. So this is maybe a little too much. I'm going to cut it just a little bit more. I like to do a little kind of sample so I know where to stick at. So let's see if that's, so that's good right there. So you can see it's probably 1/2 inch, 3/4 of an inch. I don't know, guys. I'm not great with sizing. All right, so I'm going to follow that shortest part that I have and cut all the way around. If it gets a little short, that's fine, though you want to try and make sure you don't get too short that you can't in a little bit glue, because you're wanting to stick this fabric to the hoop, gluing it to the hoop. And this I do not do in one peel, because I prefer that I'm getting it not too short. And if you notice, after I cut, I'm lifting it and moving it rather than pushing it onto the table, just to try and protect those woven wheels. Okay, so at this point I would go around and see if there's any spot that might have gotten a little bit too high and can be cut a little bit more. The reason you don't want it touching your fabric is you don't want to accidentally create a shadow or for glue to hit your piece. Okay, so I'm happy with that. Now, clear your space. Make sure that there is no excess fabric, little shreds of fabric on your table. You don't want to accidentally glue it to anything. You don't want it to get all over your piece. Just makes things a little bit more simple. Okay, now we're going to use our glue gun. So with a glue gun, so it's hot glue, or apparently you can use fabric glue. I haven't tried fabric glue, but you can do that. I'm going to zoom in a little bit closer for you. Okay, starting at the nut, you're going to add just a little bit of hot glue right on the wooden hoop, and then you're going to push it down all the way. So it looks like that. Okay, now I do like to hold mine personally because of the woven wheels. Again, you don't want to be pushing it like so. So you're gonna personally, like I do, hold it, add a little bit, and the reason I don't do more is that I don't want my glue to dry. And at this point, once you have that first section, you're gonna kind of be pushing your fabric a little bit to the right as you push it down. And you can go as far as you feel like you can without your glue starting to dry out. Sometimes I start pretty conservative, and then I get more generous with how much hot glue I put down. If you see some of these humps, don't worry too much about that, or not humps, but excess fabric that didn't get glued down. Don't worry about that yet. We'll deal with that at the very end. If it's easier for you to put this down, go ahead, like putting it down on the table. I just personally, it's easier for me to have it close to my face and to not accidentally do anything with my stitches. Now, if you rather not use hot glue, you can cut both pieces of fabric all the way down to the hoop. But I have noticed all of my old pieces like that do seem to be coming a little bit looser. I don't know if that's just because it didn't have enough fabric to hold it taut or what, or maybe that's just, you know, I was younger in my experience and I wasn't pulling my fabric tight enough, but I do now try to avoid cutting my fabric all the way down to the hoop, like both pieces. All right, so I've done all of it now. Now I'm gonna go back to these pieces that are a little bit loose and put a little bit of glue right underneath them, being careful not to get it on the stitched fabric. Okay, so I'm gonna put that down and we'll move on to the next part. All right, so now you're gonna grab your felt circle that came in your kit if you have the kit, sorry, words. And then you're gonna place it right inside, centered, and kind of push it down. I'm gonna hold it again for this so that I don't mess anything up. Just use your fingers to kind of tuck it in there. Zoom out a little. Okay, so that's in there nice and snug, and if you really want, you don't have to do anything else, because honestly I don't think the felt would fall out when it's this snug into it. But what I prefer to do is put, sorry, that was my iron. Okay, iron, all done. All right, I like to put 4 little dots of hot glue at 4 points in the circle, so top and bottom and then both sides. And what I do is I just kind of pull my felt back just a little bit, make a little bit of a dot, and then push it back in there. Now you can go all the way around if you want. I personally, because the felt comes so close to the fabric, I try not to do it just because I just get a little nervous. And I'm nervous that too much glue will end up going down onto the fabric, onto the main piece, and mess something up. So I just prefer the 4 little corners. Okay, so just kind of push those down. And then you can turn your piece over, and there might be little fabric, some glue things all over that you can deal with. Now, the last step, which is totally optional, you might not need this, but, sorry, you can use a lint roller to kind of take off any little excess fabric that might have kind of like gotten on your piece as you were finishing the back. Just do not put this over your woven wheels. Don't even touch them. You can just, maybe if there's something on it, you can just kind of use your finger to like fluff it out a little bit. And a quick thing real fast, talking about fluffing your woven wheel, is you can get the back of your needle and you can kind of fluff your woven wheel out a little bit if you feel like it has gotten a little flat, and it'll help give it some dimension again, because they do get a little flat, especially after using the iron on top of it. Okay, so you can get a lint roller and you can just roll over it. If you are really nervous that your stitches are possibly loose, don't do this. If you don't feel like it needs this, just don't do it. If you feel like you can get one of those little air sprayers and like spray off any excess, you can do that. But I will say it is a little terrifying sometimes to use the lint roller thinking, oh my goodness, what happens if it pulls out a stitch? Because you've already backed it at this point. There's not much of a chance to go back and fix it. You could probably finagle it in some way if you really needed to, but it would be much harder. So that is the end. That's how you back your hoop. And we're all done. Hopefully at this point you have finished your hoop. You are super proud of yourself and just feeling super accomplished. So if you have any questions, feel free to email me at contact@abideembroidery.com, message me on Instagram, all the different options. There's so many different options. So just feel free to get in contact if you feel like you need to get in touch and ask anything. So I hope y'all enjoyed making this piece. I know it was really fun for me to do a full tutorial for you that wasn't a stitch along like I have in the Easter time at Advent time. So I hope y'all enjoyed these videos.